Hi, family. Um, some more perspectives to share with you today. I hope you find this a blessing. And if you did, it is my honor to share that with you. I love you very much, family. Um, but before we get started, I just wanted to point out behind me in this area here, maybe you can see um, there is a masterful spider web there. This spider not only put his web in between the two bars of the gate, um, to trap any sort of insects that, let's say, would be flying towards the light, for instance, or the false light, because that's what light bulbs are. They're false light. Um, anyhow, he built that there, also right near the corner, right where the wind catches around the corner, and so if any moth or insect or whatever would fly into his net by chasing after the false light, um, he would catch them because the wind would blow them into the web. So very clever web. And guess what? That spider did not go to school. And neither should we. Okay, so what I want to share with you today. It's, I think I'll call this the perceived difference between good and evil. Here we are. So I will refer to and try to include in the show notes links so you can see for yourself. Always do your own research, family. I'm going to draw from just one of the so-called holy books called the Bible. And it's taken from the Old Testament. So that means you can also find this in the Torah, and you can likely also find it in the Quran somewhere, although it might be told a little bit differently, but nonetheless, they're all the same thing. They're all like version 1, version 2, version 3. There's no difference between the religare in that true sense of the word. So in this book, in the Bible, it talks about, there's a whole book within the Bible. So the book is like a collection, or sorry, the Bible is a collection of books. So this one particular book is called Job, and it's spelled J-O-B, right? Now it describes Job as being a righteous man. And what does that mean? That means he was upright, like the trees, with his roots firmly into the ground, having a connection to Father Sky and Mother Earth, unshakable, invincible, invictus. It also describes Job as a man of patience. This essentially means that why did he have patience, right? Because he understood, he knew who he was. He knew himself to be a spark of the divinity. He knew himself to be a piece of the God, or the Creator, or the Great Spirit, or whatever you want to call it, infinite consciousness. And as such, he knew that the physical form experience he was having was just that, just an experience. It's not, it doesn't define who you are, right? I will also include a little bit more about this in a link to a guided meditation on SoundCloud, if it will help you remember who you are. It's my honor to share that. So knowing that he was a spark of this infinite consciousness, and knowing that this was just an experience, he was not going to be drawn into the polarity of the experience, to identify with the experience, to further entrench him and train him into the manifestation of more of this experience. So as he was practicing and learning and evolving. The test, they call it literally a test. It says, and I'm paraphrasing here, and it kind of depends on which version of the Bible that you read, because they're all different. Because we all know that the truth has to be edited every year. So it talks about Satan, and when we think of that in today's terms, we think of the devil or darkness or evil or something bad, right? But actually, if you really read the Bible, or the book of Job in this case, if you really read that, you'll see that there is ultimately no separation between good and evil. There ultimately is no amorphomized or characterized version of dark and light in the terms of Satan and God. But rather, the light requires the darkness for it to take a form and to have an experience on this plane so it can evolve its consciousness. God actually, in this book called Job, God, it says, again, I'll paraphrase, God allows Satan to test Job. So, just a different perspective here, family. This is ultimately the tidbit here I want you to kind of take away and mull it over and see what your heart tells you. So if God allows Satan to test his most righteous and patient aspect of himself, because God, in that sense, is a he, but so just use your own terminology. It doesn't matter. But essentially, if Job is a piece of this infinite consciousness, and the infinite consciousness allows Satan to test him, does that imply a relationship of enemies? Does that imply a relationship of opposites, or does that imply an adversarial relationship? No, it doesn't really. I mean, if you allow it, then it sounds more like you are cooperating, not fighting. In this case, God is not fighting with the devil. Rather, they are cooperating to test Job. See how well he stands up in his truth, in his righteousness, with his patience, with his knowingness. And so how does that apply to us today? Well, use your imagination, family. One thing I can share with you is that when we consider all of the divisions that we have, let's see, just for starters, black, white, Christian, Jewish, Democrat, Republican, male, female, these are just the way that we perceive ourselves as infinite consciousness. That's the skin suit that we chose to incarnate into. That is the family that was going to force the religion down your throat, or force the political party down your throat and dictate to you everything that you believe, right? That is the experience, families. It's not meant for us to overly identify with it or find ourselves getting caught like in the spider's web. I want to close this by offering a prayer. As of this time on Caesar's calendar of fake time, July 6th, I think, 2020. And we see a lot of darkness in the world. We see GMOs, vaccinations, chemtrails, pollution of the environment, desperate, hopeless, homeless, hungry people that in this world of abundance, there's just no logical reason for that. This zero-sum game, this I have to win, so that means you have to lose. This polarity that we're drawn into, identifying with the experience that we're having. And we see that manifested in many ways, not only within ourselves, but in others. And one of the ways that we're seeing it manifested now here on the 6th of July, 2020 vision calendar, is we're seeing characters like Bill Gates and Anthony Fauci and, gosh, trying to keep all their names straight, Alan Dershowitz, and just a whole host of others, right? All the pedophiles and politicians and all this like darkness, right? We see that manifested right now. I want to offer a prayer to the darkness. Thank you. I see you. I acknowledge your pain and your suffering. I acknowledge that you are inflicting this pain and suffering on others because you yourself were a victim in your lineage of experiences, of incarnations. I make a safe place for you on this planet. For your healing. I offer for you to take some time in your own quarantine and your own censorship. In Mexico or Spanish, the face mask is called cubre boca, which just means covering for the mouth. So I offer the quarantine and the censorship to cover their mouths so that they are no longer infecting others, and that they may be alone without projecting, without having, you see, this quarantine and the censorship would allow them to be alone with themselves, with their own pain, rather than having an audience or a population upon which to project that very confused consciousness. That they may be able to sit with that and learn from that and evolve and heal and return to the sacred neutral. Return to the truth of knowing who you are. Be the patient and righteous. And then return to us on the planet so that you can manifest a more conducive environment for our children to learn. All of the children of Mother Earth, for all of us, I offer this prayer. And that means I cannot judge. I cannot pretend to know the mind of infinite consciousness. I can see that it's disillusioned. I can see that it's been caught into the web as it was flying into the false light. And I make a way for you to come out. That goes for Bill Gates, Anthony Fauci, all the politicians, all the mayors, all the governors, all the corporations, and everybody who's inflicting these crimes against humanity upon the planet right now with this corona game. And make a way for you, make a space for you at the table of humanity